Hello everyone, we got a nice Q&A question from Schleifer about Schweinfurt, and here's Bismarck from Military Aviation History, who will support me hopefully on this question.
Right, so Schleifer from Subscribestar actually, he asks, did the Schweinfurt Raid affect the German war economy, especially tank production?
So, for context, I will start with a quote. As the Americans searched for a bottleneck target that would undermine the entire German war effort, their attention fell upon the factories around Schweinfurt, which manufactured about half of total excess supply of ball bearings. On the 17th of August 1943, the Americans attacked the Schweinfurt anti-friction bearing plants and the Regensburg Messerschmitt factory. It was the largest and costliest mission US bomber crews had flown to date, with 16% of the force shot down. During the second attack on Schweinfurt in October, the losses were even worse. There was a point there. Yeah, with 16% shot down, point. And during the second attack on Schweinfurt in October, the losses were even worse.
Short interlude here. Actually, during the recording of the video, I remembered that the United States bombing survey likely has something on ball bearings. As such, here a bit of context on the general importance and uses of ball bearings, or anti-friction bearings as they are called in the survey. As essential components of virtually all mechanical devices used in the dynamic warfare of today, anti-friction bearings occupy a key position in modern war economy. Planes, tanks, motor vehicles, weapons, electrical equipment, precision instruments, and plant machinery all depend on bearings for speed and efficiency of performance. Furthermore, one element of caution was the lavish use of bearings in German designs, the result of industry's long existence and excellent salesmanship. German planes, tanks, and machines were assumed to contain more anti-friction bearings than comparable British and American models. The possibility of eliminating these uses was discounted, however, in the expectation that changes in design would require at least 6 months and probably a year.
So, is this something to add for Schweinfurt in general before I try to answer the question?
Schweinfurt in general.
On the raid and everything.
I mean, not much. A little bit of trivia maybe. LeMay, you might know him. He led the 3rd Bombardment Wing against Regensburg. He was the first one in with his flight. He drew a lot of the fighters initially. They got hammered, then flew out over Switzerland, due south. Then the second attack came in against Schweinfurt, and by the time that Schweinfurt was hit, the Luftwaffe had reloaded, refueled, and went back up and hit those guys. And it was pretty bad. So, yeah.
So, now about the ball bearings.
According to the United States Bombing Survey on the wartime use of anti-friction bearings for December 1943, only 4.0% were used for tanks, which is about the same amount as for motor vehicles with 4.1%. Whereas for aircraft, the number was at 31.4%, the rest being general equipment and weapons and naval. Yes, the category was really named weapons and naval, which is a bit weird. Anyway, yet another table gives 6.4% for bearings used for tanks and 7.7% for motor vehicles, although these numbers are for 1945, not 1943. Additionally, one should be careful since all bearings are not made equal. To quote, on the other hand, tanks and motor vehicles, which together make up only 14% of all bearings, this is for 1945, required 43% of those in the medium size range. As you can see, the moment you take a closer look, it gets more complicated.
Generally, it's noted from, at least in the semi-official history of Germany, the Second World War, that the impact was rather limited. And to quote, otherwise the attack was less impactful. The Germans began to obtain replacements from Sweden, Switzerland, picked up ball bearings with a backpack from the manufacturer to bridge temporary bottlenecks, more on this later, switched to production of simpler ball bearings and soon found that companies still had enough ball bearings of all kinds in stock. Now here's a major issue. There are 2 sources given. One are the memoirs of Speer, who is not a particularly reliable source, to put it very diplomatically. And the second is actually something from the archives, the military archive. The problem is, it's from 1956. And finally, what is the stuff with the backpacks?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care how they gave around the ball bearings, but that sounds somebody didn't really critically think about probably with something like Speer wrote. It sounds like I don't know what. So this is my major issue with the whole assessment to the whole thing. I assume the ball bearings were more important for aircraft than for tanks, but I could be terribly wrong. And it generally seems there was not really a major impact at all.
Yeah, the Regensburg factory was only one of two major factories that Messerschmitt have. And as far as I know, production did start off relatively quickly again. Also, you got to remember, if a factory gets hit, it doesn't mean that the factory is completely destroyed. Yeah. Parts of the factory can still be up and running, and you can still manufacture things there that you maybe keep on stock or send then over to your second factory, which is an inconvenience. But in actually to categorically and knock out a factory to the point where it cannot produce anymore is extremely difficult. And I'm talking about actually the factory already getting hit. We're not talking about accuracy or any of those problems, because from 8,000 meters up, hitting a area that is, 500 meters in width and 700 meters in length is actually a lot more difficult than some of the publications on the northern bomb side, or when it comes to the Germans to the Loftus actually make out. It's extremely difficult, and you are not going to hit with a lot of bombs. And if you do hit, you have to, really to knock out a factory, you have to keep on flying attacks against that factory. And every single time you get there, you need to hit. And it must be a sustained effort. There are a few exceptions, you might say, with some plans where when you hit them, maybe a lot of the resources get destroyed. So fuel, maybe oil, something that might be combustible, that might burn. That might be a target that you can knock out relatively easily, all things considered. But a factory in itself, you see this with the Americans, you see this with the Brits, we see this with the Germans. They do fly attacks against factories, and post-war assessments as well have shown that how difficult it is to knock out a factory. And every side knew this from their own personal experience. When the Luftwaffe flew against British factories during the Battle of Britain early on, the British were like, oh, we can still keep producing. We might have a couple of holes in our factory which we have to patch, but clear out away the rubble. Let's get cracking. Let's produce more aircraft or more whatever. And that can be done in a day or two. But then you suddenly imagine that if you fly your own missions, you're going to have an effect. Yes, you drop more bombs. Yes, you have more aircraft. But somehow you have this feeling that you're going to make a damage that is going to be a lot more prominent or a lot more devastating than
I assume both sides didn't talk very well. So like the factory guys didn't really talk with the Air Force guys and other things. So you have sometimes the problems like with the radios, like that the Luftwaffe couldn't talk with the Panzerwaffe. And these were at least both militaries in the same military. Now factory guys talking to more or less civilians, probably talking with bombers. Very unlikely, I guess. Yeah. And the other issue is, as mentioned, there was not much production just on demand going on. So I assume a lot of stocks were already all there. So it could be that nothing was realized by a lot of factories which were far away or something, because then you have a delay or something. Or you would have a delay, but then you ship more in the next shipment or something.
What we could say also about this is perhaps going a little bit on speculation here, but we have seen this in the past where certain attacks that were very costly have sort of then been given an importance of saying, well, we did realize something because we destroyed, let's say, the ball bearing factory, because you don't want that sacrifice to be in vain. Sometimes you do, I feel like you do have sometimes this attitude that you maybe beef up a little bit the achievement there, or what actually happened, in order to make sure this wasn't an attack that was failed, or
Yeah.
this was something that actually had an effect. Again, we noted that with this bottle, these backpack situation. I mean, surely they had crates lying around somewhere and so on. And then again, it's Speer, so it's difficult to say. We might look into it a little bit further. Schweinfurt Raid is of course very interesting.
Might be, I think the U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey might have something. But then again, this thing was written under or at least to a certain degree, to prove that strategic bombing was worthwhile.
Yeah.
Generally, from the previous information given by the Germany at the Second World War and the further information from the United States Strategic Bombing Survey, I would conclude that there was almost no effect on German tank production from the Schweinfurt Raid, at least from all the information that is available to me now.
So yeah, thanks Schleifer for sending this in.
Yeah, thank you very much. So also thank you to every supporter, and also thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.